Hello, this is Lights126 Reloaded, and the trailer to Transformers 1 has finally arrived. I've seen the trailer, and hey, it looks pretty good for what it was trying to tell. Everything's clean, everything's pretty good. The animation holds up, the sound, the visuals, the artistic direction, it all looks pretty good. I was curious to see how this would go, and I finally get to see how it will look like. And from some of the language that I heard, I think this movie is going to be PG-13. So I don't have to worry about them being so restricted for children audiences. They don't have to cut back. I mean, Transformers don't have to be the most serious thing ever, but there should be some level of groundedness it should have. And this movie, I think, does a good job of being grounded, but still a little bit lighthearted. That perfect balance for kids and adults to enjoy. So I'm alright with how the direction of the tone is going. I saw some comments that people don't really like this sort of direction. Some people want it to be similar to the War for Cybertron video game. Some people have their grievances. But hey, everybody is not going to like everything. Now for the voice actors, hey, I'm not going to really complain. They all did their decent part. Scarlett Johansson is Ariel. I feel like she's a good fit. Hemsworth is Orion. It's alright. Ryan Tyree Henry is D16. I don't know. It's full of character. I just never really expect Megatron and that sort of characterization. But the thing about people is that they change. A lot of people did not appreciate Anakin being 9 years old in the Phantom Menace. They just did not expect Darth Vader to be that person. But everybody has different stages in their life. It is more realistic to have somebody that have a very distinguishable past, especially characters that has a massive character jump. The more complex villains are not just made evil. In the original G1 cartoon, Megatron was just made evil. The Decepticons were actually a race called military hardware who was made for conflict, for war. They were instruments of destruction. But to give some clarification, I already know that this movie is not going to just take up all the elements of the origin stories from other continuities. It's going to really be a new thing. It's going to take elements from other continuities, but it's not going to just rehash the same story. People might be wanting to see Megatron as a gladiator. You might not get that in this movie. You probably want to see Ryan Pax as a clerk, as a librarian. You might not get that in this movie. Now I saw the Decepticon insignia. I see that the insignia is the Bayverse design of the insignia. Many people aren't aware of this, but the insignia of the Autobot and the Decepticons in the Bayverse look a bit different in comparison to the original Autobot and Decepticon insignia back in the 80s and the other cartoons. So there was word that this was going to be a prequel to the live action movies. I don't know why, unless you ignore the Bayformers. Maybe it can work for Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast alone, but the Bayformers, my gosh, there's just too much in that continuity for this movie to try to connect to. It should be in relation to the Bayverse universe, but not a prequel to those movies. That's what I think the Rise of the Beast and Bumblebee movies should be. Just related to the universe, but not prequels. A family of the continuity, but not being of one timeline. Overall, the character designs look pretty decent. Oh man, have you seen Alpha Trion? For the first time, they didn't just give him just some facial hair. To be really honest with everyone, he looks like a Bionicle elder. If you've seen those Bionicle movies, you will get the idea. And some people have even made comparisons that this feel like a Bionicle movie. And I think they was making those connections because of the Alpha Trion scene. That's something. Though I guess they wanted Lawrence Fishburne to be a little bit more dramatic. I thought he would give it his Morpheus voice. And I thought that was a good casting. Lawrence Fishburne is Alpha Trion. To have Morpheus but through Alpha Trion. For Bumblebee's voice actor, Keegan-Michael Key, he's a comedic type, so they wanted to make Bumblebee comedic as well. It works in a way. Now this would be a new side to Bumblebee. In fact, the characterization of this character would probably be better than most incarnations of the character. Bumblebee is not a very complex character. He's very generic for kid appeal. He is there because Hasbro promoted the crud out of him, and it's just a thing that he just become like an iconic character to just milk. But he's like that because he's just been given too much exposure, as he takes away from all the other kinds of diverse characterizations of the Transformers. And his characterization is just generic. I'm the young guy and I'm for kids. From my perspective, Generation 1 and Transformers Animated pretty much had like the best characterization of the character. Even though this characterization is similar to some of the more recent versions of him still having that young, brash charm, now he's just overly comedic and a bit loony. But overall, I think this movie's going to be entertaining. I think there's a story to tell. I kind of know how this all going to end if they're going to end it in this movie. But ultimately, we know where this is supposed to end up. And for how it looks and how it's being presented, I think it's going to get some traction and getting people to watch it. It's cheaper and it looks different. It feels different. And I think that's what the Transformers need, as it fulfills a desire that many people wanted for these movies, not to have any human characters. And I think that's one of the major pluses going for it. To see a more fleshed out Cybertron, to see how Transformers society worked before the Great War. So in doing all of this, I think that this movie has a lot going for it. And that's pretty much a good thing for Transformers animation. One thing Transformers should be is action-packed and story-driven, but it should represent what the Transformers really are. The kids' cartoons does a good job with presenting characters, but they don't want to go too far in the direction of being too crude with the conflict. The movies has its action, but because they don't want to put all that money into animating Transformers in long, more complex situations, then you result having to use humans as filler. That's why you get things like The Last Knight with all that garbage exposition from a human being. Just show us Transformers. I'm glad that they're not holding back with certain material. It will be language, so that can guarantee that this isn't for preschoolers. That's a benefit that goes into these kind of movies, when you can give out complex presentation without trying to be so limited for children. Like, children needs to be given plushy-like content so that their parents won't get too offended. Even though the generations before them has watched more crude stuff, while they grew up to become more conservative than the later generation. So why are certain topics so cut back? Now, I have a reason, but this channel isn't about that kind of stuff. It's about Transformers. And for what I see of this trailer, I think we have a good movie coming forward. So thumbs up. This is Lights 1216. To all are one.